What up, players? It's WarbossTae back up in this mug. Let's talk about Qulathis the Exile. It's the second hero character released for Warhammer Quest, the Cursed City, or the second hero character highlighted, seeing as how all the models are going to be released at the same time, unless they make them available for a separate purchase, which I don't think they would do. She's the first wood elf character that's not a spooky elf spirit trapped in a tree, so I don't think, unless they're planning to release new Glade Guard, I don't see how releasing her with some special rules specific to Age of Sigmar could benefit the Sylvaneth fraction. So we'll just take a look at her and I'll give you my first thoughts. Qulathis the Exile, one of the new Warhammer Quest game heroes. After losing her home and family, she's come to the Cursed City to seek vengeance on those who took everything from her. So her art looks very underwhelming. She just looks like a wood elf character with a antler tiara and a face mask. She's masked up and social distancing herself. That's why she uses her bow and arrows. Okay, so let's take a look at the figure, and I like the angle of her body. Her legs are jumping one way, but she's twisting her body around to fire her bow and arrow. I like that she's jumping off a piece of masonry rather than just propping her foot up and pumping her bow in the air like, yay! I also like the 3 braids. That's interesting. The braids all have varying degrees of movement, and they're all at different angles to give you a nicer line in the background, that nicer horizontal 3 lines. Yeah, and I like the color choices. Shadow gray, that bluish gray for the pants, a nice wintry forest green, rather not wintry green, but forest green for the skirt and the face mask, and then the nice hawk turquoise, that bluish green color for her top. Fur trim on the boots as well as her top. She has no cape, or cloak rather. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's definitely more dynamic and action-packed than the first figure we took a look at, the Vampire Hunter, but there are still some questions I have, like why would anybody pick this character? It doesn't seem like, unless her abilities and her bow gives her some really nice powers in the game. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe she's just a really strong ranged fighter also, and there are people who do like fighting at range rather than up close. Okay, so I'll give you my tips on how to paint Qulathis the Exile. Alright, for this WarbossTaeoretical, we're going to start by building the entire model. We're not going to work in sub-assemblies. Everything can be accessed depending on how you're holding the miniature. I would spray paint everything once that glue is dried with Zandri Dust. Zandri Dust color primer from Games Workshop. For the antlers and for the hair, I would start with Rakarth Flesh. I would also use Rakarth Flesh for the arrows, as well as the arrows in the quiver, the fur trim around her collar, and the fur trim on the boots. The arm wrappings, the wood of the bow, and any other leather straps, I would paint in Dryad Bark. I would use Russ Gray or the Fang. Either one of those works as a base color for the pants. For the scales on her codpiece, as well as the quiver color, I would use Cantor Blue. And then I would use Stegodon Scale Green, or better yet, Incubi Darkness for her top. Retributor Armor for the gold, Corn Red for the fletching on the arrow, and I guess Leadbelcher for the arrow tip. Yeah, that's fine. For the color of her scale armor, as well as her mask, I would use Caliban Green. And then, yeah, those colors all are... The good thing about Games Workshop range, most of the colors have various highlighted colors labeled in the same, I guess, fictional circle as whatever the base color is. For example, the Fang can be highlighted up with rust gray, and you look for the Space Wolves colors that would build upon that bluish gray color, rather. So most colors have a gradual progression. From Ink by Darkness, you would go to Cabalite green, and then maybe even Sybarite green. I think that would be a good way to build up the top. For the green areas on her skirt as well as her mask, I think once you hit it with Caliban green, that's that Dark Angel's color, build it up maybe instead of going with Dark Angel's greenish yellows, build that up with maybe a Warboss green and then a Skarsnik green. Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about like theoretically how I would paint this model, there's a lot of experimentation I would need to do, because once you see the colors on the model, once you start adding in the shading, like for the hair I would use Seraphim Sepia to hit that Ungor flesh and give it that brownish reddish shading, and then when you highlight it back up, you can see on the tips of her braids there, they look almost as beige and bone colored as her tiara, her antlers. So I would build up the colors by adding Rakarth flesh or Screaming Skull to that Ungor flesh, and that gives it a more natural blonde rather than going with Averland Sunset and hitting it with Irio yellow, and just that would make it look too like pastel yellow for the hair. All in all, it's a very interesting model, and I think it would be a lot of fun to paint. Looking at it just here, you can't see it in 360, unfortunately, but when you see it just as a picture, the colors look like they would be more fun to see in real life. That vibrant green contrasted with the very deep turquoise of her top, and then her blonde braids blowing in the wind. I think this model would look actually pretty good to hold it in your hand and look at it and turn and see the light reflecting off of all of these foresty colors. I think this model will look really nice once it's painted and you can see it in 3 dimensions. Whereas the Vampire Hunter just looks like a lot of browns and beiges and not very interesting to look at color-wise. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video where we're taking our sneak peek at another one of the Warhammer Quest Cursed City miniatures. They're slowly drip feeding us information about the heroes. These are the only 2 heroes available right now, the Vampire Hunter and the they're not called Wood Elves anymore. What are they called? Kurnothi? Silvereth. So I'm gonna take a little time to check out the villains that they've released. I think they've released some undead teasers, and we'll come back with a further continuation of this video series. Let me know what you think. This WarbossTaeoretical series, where we theoretically look at models coming out from Games Workshop, and I give you my artist's impression on how I would paint them. I seem to have a lot of interest in it. I think it's something that I would like to continue doing, but let me know if it's been worth your time. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are having a great day. Stay safe, and don't forget to hit that like button. Leave me a comment before you go. Subscribe to me if you're not already. We will see you in the next video.
What up, players? Gandalf the Grey, up in Dismal. Support WarbossTaeoretical Studios. For now, more than ever, Hobbiton is in desperate need of heroes. Heroes like Daniel Sprinkle, Scrag Fist, Brad 94H, Pigs, Dicey Guy, Harris Smith, Play It Painted, and Logan Swanson.